I don't know if it's really a question worth asking. But I'm going to ask you the question to see. It's the fourth quarter. You're down 3 scores, and you know the turf's bad, the weather's bad. Are you considering pulling CJ Stroud from that game before he suffers the concussion that he did? Do you think that it would have crossed your mind if you were the head coach of the Texans?
I think the biggest thing about when it happened was that they were still within striking distance. I think had it been 27-6 and CJ was out there, probably. I think it was before that, right? Probably. I think it was 24 when he got knocked out. I think once it got to the 3 touchdowns, I probably would have definitely pulled him. I don't know. These guys want to play, man. I mean, CJ's really young. He's going to want to try to figure it out. He's going to want to try to give his team a chance. He's never going to want to quit on a game, especially when the rest of the team cannot quit on a game. So I really feel like it would have been hard to tell him all right, we're going to pull you. Obviously, it wasn't his day. The conditions were tough. Drop balls all over the field. I mean, things were just mounting. But yeah, I don't know that you can go and second guess the decision to leave him out on the field and go, nope. He needed to be put away so he didn't get hurt.
I just feel like most head coaches and quarterbacks understand each other enough to know that regardless, you play football every Sunday, and it's your job to step out there and play. As a head coach, to ask your starting quarterback to step out to prevent the risk of injury sounds very NBA-esque, and it's just not like quite how football is played. So while I don't like that CJ Stroud got injured, I probably would have been one of the ones that was a little frustrated. It feels like waving the white flag, pulling your starting quarterback in that situation, especially with as much time as was left in the game. I mean, I don't know. I like to use the Manning rule. I don't know if you're familiar. The largest comeback over the shortest deficit of time was Monday night, 2001, I want to say, when the Colts played the Buccaneers. It's the first time that Tony Dungy came back to Tampa Bay, and the Colts were down by like 21 points with 3 minutes left, and they came back and won the game. So, like, if you're within 3 scores and there's at least that much time left, I'm all for continuing to press in and try and get it. Now, some of the things that may have affected this game early on, as we both know, the first half ended 0-0, and there's a lot going on around what led up to CJ Stroud's injury that kind of played into it. You can call it the weather, and you can call it the injuries. The first thing I want to talk about is specifically the injury to Nico Collins. Do you feel like if Nico Collins stays in this game, that the Texans have a significantly better chance at competing in this game?
I have to think so, in the way that the Jets were able to put up points with Garrett Wilson. He leaned on Garrett Wilson heavy, Breece Hall too, but Garrett Wilson, to be sure, like when he needed a big completion to extend a drive, and you could tell CJ just didn't have that. He did not have the chemistry built up with John Mechie. He did not have, I think, Noah Brown, maybe not all the way back. He struggled too as well. And I don't even know what happened to Robert Woods or Brevin Jordan. So when you start looking at what he had to work with, there just wasn't a whole lot of options. And until him and maybe Xavier Hutchinson get on the same page, I just feel like there was a whole lot of miscommunication, misdirection. They look so broken, and it just speaks to how much, when you have your starting core position guys, how much different they look compared to guys that play every 5th or 6th down or something like that.
Well, and this has felt like a Texans team. We've talked about it at length on the podcast that truly embodied the next man up mentality. You looked at Texans past, they did a whole video to talk about how TJ Yates, like, why not TJ Yates for winning the 2011 playoffs, right? And you talk about next man up, and it feels like this corny thing that coaches have to say because they can't say our starters aren't in there, so I guess I don't really expect to win. Like, that's lame. You have to at least act like you have a chance at winning. To this point, it's felt like next man up has been in effect. The Texans have done a really good job of overcoming injuries, but there's just a point where it kind of maybe becomes too much. One interesting stat that I'd like to bring up is that each week, I can't remember, I think it's Patrick Storm usually posts like the average yards of separation that every receiver has throughout a game. And this game by far was the worst game that the Texans have had in that category. Robert Woods was the only receiver to average over 3 yards of separation per route ran. And every other receiver was in the 1.1 1.5, 1.6 area. So, and you can also look at, Mechie, Woods, Noah Brown, and Hutchinson combined for like 4 receptions for like 19 yards or something like that. Some obscenely low number. So it's no wonder that CJ couldn't even break 100 yards in this game. It felt like whenever he threw it, it was where it needed to be, but the defender was there. That to me was the difference. Was and credit to the Jets defense. I don't think anyone who had reasonable, football knowledge in their head was doubting that the Jets defense was going to be a tough matchup. And so you can blame it on the weather all you want. I would say the biggest factor for me is the defense.